every time you're not consuming something that's reflecting your worldview, you're pushing something that's the opposite. Whereas you can find great Christian artists, maybe that aren't making Christian music, but they are Christians, living Christians, loving their wives in churches, and help push that. And it's clean and it's wholesome and it's stuff that if you reward that in the algorithm, more of that will get pushed in the algorithm and more of that will get made. And at some point, what's happening with the major label corporations is, first of all, many of my buddies are like checking out. Like, why do I need a label? That's just a terrible loan. And the way that the whole world, that world is set up is the most predatory business practices I've ever heard of. And I can tell you about it. It's really crazy. But at some point, these labels and these corporations will have to go, you know what? There's something to this Christian music thing. We have to lean into it. Just like we're seeing with The Chosen, just like we're seeing with Jesus Revolution, just like we're seeing with Lionsgate now doing a whole package deal to do more Christian films. You're going to see that with the music industry. But the funny part is you don't really even need the music industry anymore because people have gotten hip to how bad and how predatory these practices are.
How are they predatory?
So you know how an advance works within a different type of situation.
I've had it with book deals in the past.
Yeah. So the music industry is functioning similarly to that, where say an artist, I'm just going to throw out really rough numbers. Say an artist has a 20% royalty rate. That 20% royalty rate is how they're going to make money off of their music after they pay back their advance. Now, say their advance, their recording budget, their marketing budget, all in is $1 million. We're just using really rough numbers. So that's $1 million. They get maybe half of that, maybe a third goes to in their pocket, a third goes to making the album, a third goes to marketing, just using rough numbers. So now they're down $1 million. They're $1 million in the hole. Okay. They only recoup from their 20% slither. And then there's other stuff that gets backdoored into that budget that they've gotten. So we're out to dinner. All of a sudden they're taking you to the most fancy restaurant. That's added, and you don't even know that you're paying for this stuff. So that debt is going to get inflated.
It's all in the footnotes of the contract.
Yeah. So you're paying for stuff you didn't even know about. There was a artist named John Bellion who's actually a believer, and he talked about how being on tour, and all of a sudden he's looking at these itemized things, and it's like, why do we need 300 bundles of toilet paper from Costco? Like, we don't need that much toilet paper. Why are we paying this much for catering? Why are we doing this much? And so a bunch of weird stuff is getting itemized. You don't even know what it is. And you are on the hook to paying that back from your 20% slither. And that only your 20% slither is paying that back. So you get $1 million, but you have to generate them $5 million because 20% of $5 million is how you recoup that amount. So you spent $1 million. You made them $5 million. You've paid to pay back that $1 million. And then you're out of debt. And then you can start seeing residual royalties. You don't own the masters. You oftentimes don't own your own publishing. And what it does is it keeps artists in that cycle of debt. So say you spent $1 million, but you generated the label $3 million. Well, that's great. By any other metric in business, we would say, hey, we started this venture. We put $1 million in. We got $3 million back. Like that's a great flip. That's amazing. Well, you spent $3 million. You only made off of you made $1 million. You're still in debt. You still owe them money, and so now they're tacking that onto the next album, and then the next album, and then the next album. That's why so many artists have gone broke and filed for bankruptcy and all that sort of stuff. Wow. And now they're not just doing that with the music and the master exploitation. They're doing that to your tours. They're doing that to your brand deals. They're doing that to everything. So they want a slice of everything without contributing to everything. And it just becomes this really sinister way of exploiting people. And a lot of folks, again, remember that on-ramp to doing music is so cheap. It doesn't require much to start rapping. So these are folks that are coming from impoverished areas. They're not the most astute to how these deals are structured. And you tell someone, hey, we're going to put $100,000 in your pocket. And they're like, my life has changed, But they don't know that they're really hedging their bets. It's the 20-80 principle. 20% of the artists generate 80% of the revenue. So they're just signing for the sake of market share. They're just scoping up the market share, and then artists will get shelved. They'll never release music, and they just stay stuck in that cycle.
I know you were saying that because of TikTok and YouTube, we may not need the music industry, but I have to think that there's going to be a way that bigger companies who might have bad motives are going to somehow infiltrate this, and it won't be as
they've already done it
gate free as we had hoped. So how are they doing it?
They've already done it. They got in bed with TikTok, to prioritize their artists. They're now shifting to a distribution model. So now that more and more artists are going independent, they upload to TuneCore or DistroKid, and now they're saying, hey, you could release your stuff through Atlantic. You could release your stuff. So an artist that's independent, that has no ties, will be like, ooh, I can have a release through Universal or through Atlantic or through these other companies. And now they're trying to, and they're not doing any services, they're not providing anything. And now they want to just take a percentage of all the independent stuff. So they're already doing it. They've already infiltrated those worlds. Universal had a big standoff with TikTok, I say about a year ago, because they felt like they weren't compensating their artists fairly. And so there was a bunch of artists signed to Universal that couldn't put music on TikTok. And that was their primary marketing vehicle. So it's already happening. They're already it's just like Napster in the early 2000s, right? The industry is disrupted again because I don't need distribution. What do I need distribution for? I don't need your marketing. I could market myself. I can make my own music videos. I can shoot my own TikTok videos. I can just go directly and do my own touring with a Live Nation or whoever. Why do I need a major label? So now the disruption's happening. So now they're trying to cannibalize and be the new independent distributor. It's really dark.
That's amazing. So what kind of advice would you have for people who are trying to get into the music industry right now, if that's the case?
Don't.
Okay.
No, I would say if you're okay with seeing yourself as a content creator, then you make music. A content creator that makes music in that paradigm, meaning that you are primarily you're visual driven, not audio driven. So if you can be visual driven and you can make music that will convert on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and you're okay with counting the cost on that, and you're good, and there's an end objective that you're trying to reach, then this is a great time. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times, right? Okay. So yeah, if you could do it that way, then do it that way. But it's very difficult if you're approaching this for like the sake of art, and you're like, I want to make art. That's not what this is any longer. You could build a very, 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 very cult-like following, but that's not. It's going to be very difficult to get that to sustain you, right? So it's like the 1,000 fan rule. If you get 1,000 people to pour into your music $100 a year, you can make $100,000. That's still possible, but you got to be really intentional and calculated to find those 1,000 people, because there's so many things fighting for our attention right now. So I would say if someone's okay with being visual first, and they have the look and they have the ability or to develop the look and to understand social media, then great, do it. It's easier than ever to make music and distribute music and get music out there. I mean, when I started, I couldn't imagine being able to have my music accessible on everybody's phone in the world, or everyone who has a phone. That's phenomenal. That didn't exist. You needed to be in record stores. You needed to, right? Even to get on iTunes initially was difficult, but everything has changed. And so if they understand that it's content driven, that meaning make visual content that's compelling and disruptive, and the music is good, then yeah, and it's a low entry level right now. But if they're thinking this is art and this is like their thing they're going to muse over, it's very difficult to do that.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like, and subscribe.